A sudden uprush dispels the dark. Parnell Arai opens his eyes to find himself in a bright, sterile medical facility. There you are, Mr. Arai. Where am I? It's okay, you're in Orison. Looks like your regen was successful. How are you feeling? Parnell draws a few deep breaths, then moves his fingers and toes. A little sore. What happened to me? Afraid I can't help you with that. You suffered a traumatic injury, though. Don't think there'll be any scarring, so you're lucky there. What's the last thing you remember? Parnell's memories come flooding back. He's dancing with Sergi. He's on the beach in Castle, basking in the glow of Goss's binary stars. He's a kid struggling to steady a gun to shoot cans in an abandoned building on the outskirts of Archibald Station. Your brain activity looks normal, at least, the doctor says while navigating the screens on her datapad. Sorry, I'm remembering things. It's just a lot at once. All good. I ask, your last imprint was quite a while ago. If you don't imprint frequently, your short-term memory can be a bit hazy. You know that, right, Mr. Ray? Mr. Arai? Parnell shifts his eyes from the window's stunning vista over Orison's back to the doctor, then nods knowingly. Sorry, I'm still settling in. Totally understandable. Well, all your vitals look good, so you're free to leave. Obviously, take a little time for yourself, and maybe imprint a bit more frequently. Might make things easier next time. Parnell thanks the doctor, then leaves the hospital in a daze, wearing the clothing provided to him. Wind whips across the Cloudview Center's platform, chilling him to the bone through the thin material. Still, he stops to enjoy the sunset spreading vibrant color across the sky. He even leans over the railing ever so slightly to take in the cloud bank below. A sudden rush of vertigo overcomes him. Parnell takes a quick step back, then wonders if that's how he died, like a fool, falling off an Orison platform. He sits on a nearby bench and closes his eyes. No recent memories surface. Eventually, Parnell stands and walks across the platform, knowing full well that things could be worse. At least he remembers the location of his hab. Back at his green circle hab, Parnell opens a closet to change. For a second, he's shocked to see his favorite helmet missing. Of course, he was wearing it when... He pauses again, hoping something would come back, but nothing does. Instead, he recalls how he quit tailing a target in the back streets off Fujin City to buy the helmet from a pop-up stall. Something about it suited him, and it served him well, keeping him safe. That it is until now. Only later did he discover that it was an early and exceedingly rare CC's conversion helmet. One that is immensely valuable to him in many ways, and now potentially gone forever. Parnell pops open his Moby and scrolls through his inventory. His heart sinks when he sees what's missing. It must have been a big op if he took so much stuff. There's enough of his gear still in storage, but he feels so disconnected from the collection of odds and ends that it's like browsing through someone else's closet. He can't remember the last time he wore half this stuff. Shoving a dull ache of loss aside, Parnell grabs his backup undersuit and stuffs in his right leg and prayed it still fits. Circling above the surface, it doesn't take long before Parnell spots the bunker support structures. He slows the ship and adjusts course to keep his distance, unable to trust his memory enough to know whether or not the spot still has turrets. It all looks vaguely familiar, And the more he circles, the more he feels like he's been there. If he had to bet, this is where he died. Purnell found this spot after checking his Moby for his recent job history. His last gig brought him to this bunker, which would explain why he took so much stuff. In the past, he would have assembled maybe one, two people even for something like this. But Purnell started doing jobs alone since coming to Seder. At first, it was out of necessity, since he didn't trust anyone. But as his confidence grew and the credits rolled in, thanks to getting 100% payouts, he soon found himself just scrolling through his Moby, specifically for similar gigs. Plus, if Purnell was being honest, he found the rush of facing down a hive of outlaws here on Crusader all on his lonesome to be incredible. Now, contemplating landing back at the bunker where he died, Purnell wonders about the wisdom of not bringing backup. He's already at a disadvantage wearing his second-hand gear, with some idiots in the bunker probably getting ready to shoot him with carefully calibrated weapons they've undoubtedly looted from his body. Slowing the ship's thrusters, he spots a turret and sets his sights on it. He primes a missile and pushes in. To his surprise, the turret doesn't care. He takes his finger off the trigger and buzzes the bunker. When that doesn't prompt a response from the turret either, he loops back and lands without incident, glad it didn't cost him any munitions to set down near the entrance. He climbs out of the ship, quickly double-checks his unfamiliar gear, and hustles towards the bunker. The outer doors are already breached and slightly open, showing a sliver of the elevator inside. He unholsters his pistol, a near-pristine Arclight 2, and enters cautiously. A few steps inside, a hail of bullets strike his ship. Purnell spins to see that nearby turret is now fully and very active. His ship's shields flare for a moment before they blink out, and he barely has time to avert his eyes as an explosion sends ship debris flying across the landing pad. Job done, the turret returns to rest. For a second, Purnell feels woozy and steadies himself against the door. When it passes, he takes another second to contemplate his next step, activates his Moby, and sends out an emergency beacon. Then he collects himself and steps onto the elevator, certain that it would take a while for a ride to arrive and that he didn't come all this way not to get his damn helmet. Once inside, Purnell gets deja vu. He knows a lot of the prefab bunkers around Crusader were built using the same modular design, but this one feels even more familiar than most. He creeps in quick and quiet, then peers around a corner to see a grenade coming his way. Instinctively, Purnell rolls forward and takes cover behind a stack of crates. The blast knocks a few atop of him, which he quickly kicks away and starts firing. A figure falls. Purnell rolls through the swirl and smoke to a new position. He holsters his pistol, unslings his P4 AR rifle, fires, and watches another figure fall. He pushes forward, drawing fire from another concealed position. Purnell weaves behind cover until he's flanking the remaining combatant. He swings his rifle and focuses on a hazy shadow within the columns of smoke and squeezes the trigger until the figure falls. Purnell takes a moment and lets everything settle. His ears are ringing from the initial grenade blast, but the bunker is otherwise eerily quiet. He gets up, crosses to the last figure he shot. His heart sinks when he sees what's left of the distinct shape of his helmet. Now bullet-ridded and modded to match the gang's colors. Something about seeing those colors makes memories flood Purnell's mind. He looks around the space and it all comes back, including the fact that there were 4 of them last time. Purnell hears footsteps behind him, and before he can raise his rifle, everything goes black. That was Hazy Days. Oh boy. Now, this story that was put up on Comlinks early December 2022, and originally was in Jump Point 10.02 Once again, CIG, more of these. Thank you for bringing out a more recent article, short story. And please, lore team, release more of these. Get them on the com links. Subscribers had their fun. Now it's time for everybody. You know, I've always been a proponent of that, of ideally maybe a year period, and then bam, they're all released publicly, not locked behind the subscriber paywall. And then all the new content the subscribers get to enjoy first for that first year, or whatever defined period. Anyway, so this is about Crusaders bunker missions. I think this is something very relevant to a lot of players. And I hate to say it, but when you look at these, if you surf the com links and you see the lore post mix in, something like Hazy Days is a really short, easy to remember name. But if you didn't have the com link fully opened and you didn't notice the pistol and the shootout and stuff, you would probably maybe walk right past this, so to speak, and keep scrolling. Maybe check out those subscriber promotions that are right below there. Some nice new weapon paints. Or this week in StarCitizen. What else is happening this week? What's going on? Bunker exciting mission of this guy trying to reclaim his stuff. And he's a streetwise solo player who maybe doesn't learn his lessons. But didn't bring backup yet again. It is interesting. I also enjoyed the part where the turret was obviously being prevented from acting by the pirates until it was at a disadvantage. Once again, if our friend Parnell here would have thought to have an additional person with him, basically, that even if he wanted to play the solo game, he could have left him in the ship and said, hey, if any trouble happens, get out of here. The turret starts shooting them or something. They can blow that turret to smithereens. Maybe even if he feels that he's losing a fight or he's trying to draw them out, he could retreat back outside the bunker, back onto the pad, and use the ship. The buddy of his inside the ship could use the ship-wide weapons to basically vaporize everything that isn't named Purnell. Ship weapons are incredibly powerful. This is something that I think people forget when I've heard a few people mention this, myself included. Sometimes I forget it. That size 1 ship weapons even are massive compared to even shoulder-mounted weapons, because they are basically at a huge disadvantage. Take a size 1 repeater or something like that, or a size 1 Gatling on a ship. They have a lot more ammunition storage, or unlimited ammo. Plus, they have the ship shields you have to break through. And once armor and hull is implemented correctly, ships are quite beastly. I would say that only certain vehicles really, or future, I'm sure there will be future turrets and both manned and remote that can certainly discourage ships, or maybe even take them down if they're small enough. But it is still something that's a tough nut to crack. And the larger the ship weapons, the more obvious this is. I think even of another of my favorites, one of many ships that have these, I think of my 325A that has a size 3 Gatling on the front. And yeah, it's got quite a lot of teeth for such a small ship. So yeah, anyway, I think this is interesting. I also think that that it's interesting that they didn't point out, what kind of ship he was running, how big it was, etc. I think the point was that that's not the emphasis here. The emphasis was on the FPS aspects, how this guy is proud of his combat prowess on the ground and being able to clear bunker structures. I also thought this was a good one. I think the CIG is has a habit of this. They curate certain articles and short stories and other things into the com links and also in their videos too, by the way, the parts where they interview the developing team, the developers, and the wonderful folks who test the UC teams, QC teams, and other fine folks who all make our game possible. They tend to curate their products around upcoming stuff that's being added to the game. What am I talking about? Well, there is massive changes coming in the next couple patches for underground gameplay. Specifically, a whole bunch of modular componentized scenario type based things underground. Think of it as the outpost type scenario. So if you've been on R&R stations anytime recently, they have these modular type interiors. And I think a lot of the lessons learned from some of the issues with wayfinding and everything else were implemented into these tunnels that are being created for these massive underground complexes. And one of the other things that's really wonderful that CIG has been bringing up is this aspect of having these checkpoint areas that allow for multi-tiered gameplay. So you can go in guns blazing on the main floor, or attempting to sneak in with bad credentials or something, I would assume in the future. And then also there's like a Splinter Cell aspect where you can go down below and try to sneak through the crates and hope the sensors don't catch you, and have certain build outs that can match that. But just the gist is that there will be different environments that you can fight along or sneak along, or find other ways through with problem solving, that are vertical as much as they are lateral, working your way through the place as much as just getting up and down and exploring all the different dynamics, finding different offices, maybe with some data information to steal, finding weapons to take, and ammunition and health packs and such. There's a lot of interesting things that they're talking about. The gateways in particular that I keep discussing, were the reason I'm bringing those up is because they describe them as basically like a checkpoint. There's like food and water in some of them, because that's where like the people come back to as their break room. There's medical supplies in some of them. There's weapons. There's all these different things that will be like basically able to reset the clock, so to speak, because you've made it that far. So I'm not saying every single one of them's going to have that, but they, each one will have something different, or a few different things. So that's pretty interesting. I'm going to include the link in the description to that video in its entirety, covering the tunnels really well, the modular tunnels. And I really recommend at least just jump around it. And if certain parts catch your eye, it's a very visual video because you can see right what they're discussing. Tons and tons and tons of concept art. So I'll include that. And please check it out if you want to, be the evangelist of FPS gameplay. If this even interests you at all, check it out. I will say that this is not going to hail in. I'm going to head this off at the pass. Players building their own tunnel networks and such. I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. I'm just saying these tunnels are procedural, and they're NPC based type things baked into the planets and moons and such, and they're going to be meant to be more of gameplay mission areas and sites to kind of add more depth, literally and figuratively, to the gameplay experience. And that these pads above them are going to be extremely critical for players. So if you may want to go a little stronger than usual. Have a pilot. Once again, this is one of the few times I can say this. Remember, if you've watched my older videos, you'll know I like to say with dropships, or modules that are part of a dropship, or ships that can be used as a dropship, so to speak, but not quite fully check all the boxes. If you know you're that person, they're the right ship for you. Well, this is the kind of scenario right here. If you're the kind of person who likes getting people in and getting out to safety, or doing Overwatch and watching the skies above it and fending off other players and making sure that your buddies don't have any additional surprises coming in behind them on the safe tunnel that they're entering from, this is your type of gameplay. I believe that there will be some serious gameplay for the pilot keeping an eye on the ship. Just for example, in this story about how the small pirate organization was smart enough to pretend the turret was inactive, and then once he got out, bam, the ship was lit up and destroyed. And yeah, it's very clever, and I wouldn't be shocked if players can operate turrets or have sabotage type equipment, or just handheld equipment, or heck, hide an entire vehicle inside one of these systems. Once again, watch the modular tunnel video and you'll understand what I'm getting at. There are vehicles inside those tunnels, and I don't think CIG showed how big the doors can be, but by my logic, somehow the big vehicle got down there, so I would suspect some of these elevators are big enough to fit a vehicle. Maybe not throughout the entire complex, because then I just cruise around in a Centurion and just laugh, but uh, with my buddies, and workmates and such. But I would say that there is a possibility that that would be another scenario. You could even fly over there in a Connie Taurus or something like that, drop off a scent and just leave the scent inside the doorway, and hope and eventually scanning shouldn't be able to show that if it's inside a closed off space inside the elevator. But yeah, not that I'm giving you bad ideas, but yeah, the future is certainly going to be interesting. So yeah, not a lot of lore talk here in this commentary, more of just excitement about the new gameplay, pointing you towards the modular talk that the CIG did. It just covers it so well. It's really not worth me trying to dissect it any better than what's there. And a little bit of excitement at the same time. I'm always cautious with these things. I've played enough bunker missions myself to kind of be, what's the word? I'm not going to say tired of them, but there's certainly something I can only take so much of. And then I want to play something else and do different other kinds of gameplay. And then, you know, a day or two later, if an org mate reaches out and goes, "Hey, I'm thinking of running a bunker. Are you interested in coming along?" Yeah, I'll tag along, Then I'm back into it. So that's how I'd rate bunker missions. I'm not extremely excited about FPS gameplay, especially with how AI performs right now on the live servers, especially on a busier server. But this is going to be very interesting, especially with the growing player caps, with servers that are supporting the bigger player caps. We've got PES coming in, at least in its first iteration in 3.18, and I'm not, if rumors are to be believed, and I've got huge, huge hopes for that to basically increase everyone's frame rates and hopefully give the AI a few more cycles to think about things. I have seen the AI do some incredible things, both the friendly ones and the bad guys, when they have some time to think. And I can more speak to the ships. I have more experience with that. I spent more hours flying and such, but I have seen the AI do some interesting things, and they will actually start intelligently fighting back. They will not want to crash into you or run into you if you're on foot, if they're friendly, or just stand there. They actually take cover and return fire and such. So yeah, I would be very interested to see how this new gameplay is going to happen if AI can come along a little bit. I know the AI can do it. CIG, I know, can make it happen. I'm just curious if PES will free up that computing power to make the AI truly what we want to see. We want to see a peek behind the curtain. I'm not saying for the best thing ever, but I want a bartender that can deal with drink, and I want an AI that can at least take cover and return fire competently in one room. That's all I'm asking for. Okay, so that's all I got. Reliably take cover and return fire in a single room. Sorry, just to be clear. And less monster closets, more like they walk through a doorway, that kind of thing. I understand that the closets are necessary to get people in, but once in a while, but not always. All right, thank you for sticking around for this one. If you haven't already, please subscribe. To my long-term subscribers, thank you so much for sticking around. I do make these for you, and yeah, for those who appreciate lore, especially, thank you for taking a shot on this one. Fly safe.